Well, good morning, Open Heart. Welcome to our live stream for this Sunday, October 11th, 2020. I greet you. I bless you. I see God in you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do to make this live stream celebration possible.
Well, good morning. I'd like to welcome you to today's Open Heart Spiritual Center virtual service. I want to thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, as we say here at Open Heart, you are a guest and you are family. And so I want to say, welcome home, family. This is our home. And we have a wonderful community here at Open Heart Spiritual Center. So I do hope that you will continue to join us and that you will tell your friends and everyone about Open Heart Spiritual Center, because we have a wonderful food for the soul. And now if you'll just join me with taking a breath in and turning within and recognizing and realizing that there is only one power and one presence in the universe, in each and every single one of us, for it does not care what name you call it. It just cares that we call upon it. And today that we're present in each and every single moment, remembering and realizing that there is one almighty source that is behind all things that occur today, all things that occur in each moment and with every breath. And as our theme for the month, I keep the promise, we're keeping the promise to recognize and realize that there is nothing beyond what Source can do for us, and how Source answers prayer, and the miracles and blessings and manifestations that are always happening, and that we allow ourselves to believe and know that that is the capital of each and every single one of us, and putting out that presence and that energy for one another to be lifted up in love, in prayer, and knowing health and wholeness for each and every single one of us in our community and beyond. Remembering those that may not be feeling well today or haven't been feeling well lately, and allowing ourselves to just lift them up and let them lean in on our energy of lifting up and raising the vibration. And I give thanks to be in this service today. I give thanks for the music and for the affirmative reading and for the message and the messenger, and knowing that each and every single part of this day is touching our hearts. It touches our hearts in that special way that we allow ourselves to remember and be reminded in each moment that we are all connected and we are all one. And no matter what's going on in our world or around us, that we allow ourselves to take a moment and take a breath and just be reminded that the eyes that look at you and the eyes that look at me, we all have that same source, and we're all connected to the same source. And so let us just remember that. And as we go through this day, taking it in and allow ourselves to just let it go. And knowing that this service is already done in the mind of God. And so it is.
I keep the promise. I keep the promise that I have made to myself. Never again will I tell myself that I am poor, sick, weak, or unhappy. Daily I speak the truth to my inner soul. Tell it that it is wonderful and marvelous, that it is one with the greatest cause of all: life, truth, power, and action.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we go walk it out and move mountains. We gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day, I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up. I'll do it 1,000 times again for you, for you, for you. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise you we'll bring the world to its feet and move mountains. Bring it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise unafraid, I'll rise up in spite of the ache, I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope, that we have each other, that we have each other, and we will rise always, we'll rise always, we'll rise always for you, we'll rise.
Good morning, Open Heart. Our affirmative reading today comes from the writings of the Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron. With thanks to Henry Nelson, who is the director of the Carpenter Art Garden not very far from here, and posted this on Facebook recently. And thanks to George, who's recording it for us. When you begin to touch your heart, or let your heart be touched, you begin to discover that it's bottomless, that it doesn't have any resolution, that this heart is huge, vast, and limitless. You begin to discover how much warmth and gentleness is there, as well as how much space. Your world seems less solid, roomier and spacious. The burden lightens. In the beginning, it might feel like sadness or a shaky feeling, accompanied by a lot of fear. But your willingness to feel the fear, to make fear your companion, is growing. You're willing to get to know yourself at this deep level. After a while, this same feeling begins to turn into a longing to be fully human and to live in your world without always having to shut down and close off when certain things happen. It begins to turn into a longing to be there for your friends when they're in trouble, to be of real help to this poor, aching planet. Curiously enough, along with this longing and this sadness and this tenderness, there's an immense sense of well-being, which doesn't have anything to do with pleasant or unpleasant, good or bad, hope or fear, disgrace or fame. It's something that comes to you when you feel that you can keep your heart open. And so it is.
Glad for another opportunity to, first of all, recognize our October babies. Happy birthday to Nakia, Diane, Robert, Shelley, Rena, and Mark. Congratulations to all of you on another journey around the sun. Last week, we had a glitch with the announcements and didn't get a chance to make this one, but to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the birth of Beethoven, the Beethoven Club presented an online concert featuring the Brophy sisters, Maeve and Linnea. And there is a link. You can go to BeethovenClubMemphis.org and you can view the concert. As always, we remember members of our Open Heart family in prayer. Continue to ask you to pray for the Lee family, for the Gilmore family, my mother Yvonne Gilmore especially, who continues to be in the hospital in North Carolina, the Joyner family, Mary Kirkland, Gail Hunter, Renee Crone, Daryl Lowe, Sydney Moonflower, whose uncle transitioned this week, and Vanessa McVeigh. You might have seen about the court battles and the indecision, but there's still time for the 2020 census. The deadline has been extended to October 31st. 2020census.gov is where you can go, if you've not already done so, to complete your 2020 census. We are in election season now, and this election is very, very important. November 3rd is election day in the United States, but between October 14th and the 29th, you can early vote. And these are the locations that are available, and you can find about all of them and the times and everything by going to shelbyvote.com. I don't know about you, but I need in the middle of my day, in the middle of my week, something to help me to center down. And our midday love grid meditation led by Britannia Allen does just that. Join us on Tuesdays at 12:30 p.m. via our website. Our Open Heart Thursday Connections, we will meet this week, where we gather with one another virtually to see our Open Heart family and to share all that is happening with us and to support one another. As always, I welcome your affirmative reading. Take a video, send it to me. And finally, we begin each day with prayer. 8 a.m. Central Time, our daily affirmative prayer call, 901-586-8755. What is your Goliath? You might be saying to yourself, what do you mean? But you probably know the story. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, we encounter the story of David, who's a young shepherd who is out tending sheep. But he finds himself all of a sudden caught up in the battle between his people, the Israelites, and the Philistines. You see, every day the Israelites and the Philistines would gather in the hills, one group on one side and one on the other, and they would taunt one another, and there was a valley in between. And in particular, there was this one whose name was Goliath. He was big and tall. He was massive. As a matter of fact, it talks about how big and how massive he was, and he struck fear in the hearts of the Israelites. And one day, David's father called him and asked him to take some food and to go and check on 3 of David's brothers who were a part of the Israelite army. And as David got there, he heard the taunts of Goliath. He saw the fear on the faces of his fellow Israelites. He heard all of the things that Goliath said, and he was outraged. Something in him boiled up, it stirred up, and he began asking people, why are you not fighting him? Why are you not challenging him? Why are you not meeting his taunts? And they all were afraid, and he continued to question and to ask that. And finally, they told him about the king Saul, how Saul had said that anybody who was able to defeat Goliath, he would get all kinds of rewards, including the right to marry his daughter. And so David went to Saul and he said, I take the challenge. I'm willing to take on Goliath. I'll do what it is I need to do to defeat this one who comes and insults us, who taunts us, who talks about our God, who continues to do all of the things that he did. And so as he comes to Saul and says this, Saul kind of looks at him. He's just a young boy, and Saul scoffs at him. He's amused and amazed that he would have the audacity to come and to take the challenge and say that he will do what he needs to do. But Saul goes ahead and acquiesces, and he takes his armor and he puts it on David, and he sends David out. But something happens that as David starts to walk with his armor on, it was too heavy, it was too big. He takes it off. He recognizes he doesn't need it, but instead he takes what he knows. He goes down to the river and he picks up 5 smooth stones, and he takes his slingshot and he walks down into the valley to confront Goliath. And Goliath is laughing at him and saying that he's going to defeat him, kill him, and feed his body to the dogs. And David, undaunted by all of the taunts and the teasing of Goliath, takes one of those stones and puts it in his sling, and he hurls it, and it strikes Goliath in the forehead. Goliath falls back and he's dead. And David takes Goliath's sword and he cuts off his head, and he's victorious. The army of the Philistines sees that their champion has been defeated, and they retreat. What is your Goliath? Rather than focusing on this story as some kind of battle that happened long ago, let's look at it as a psychological, spiritual battle that happens for each of us regularly, something that happens on us on a regular basis. It's a battle between the world of facts versus truth. The battle between the world of facts versus truth. For you see, facts change, but truth remains. When we read this story, it goes into great detail to describe Goliath, how large, how tall, how strong, and how he carried a spear that was massive, that had a tip on it that was heavy, and that he wore armor that was thick and heavy. What is your Goliath? Your Goliath is a problem that looms large in your perception. It's strong. It dominates the whole horizon of your viewpoint. You think about a person who's in an unhappy relationship. Only thing that they can see at that moment is their unhappiness in that relationship. That's the only thing that's there on their horizon that looms large. A person who's ill, the only thing in that moment they really can see and think about and focus on is that illness, their diagnosis, those things that are going on with them. When we give those things power, they become our Goliath. When we do them, we make them grow out of proportion. And they're not in and of themselves are so massive, but it's our perception of them. The armor of Goliath is all of the support, all of the justification that we pile on whatever the issue, whatever the problem is. We pile on it to the existence and add to the existence of the problems that we are experiencing, and they loom larger. If you think about the purpose of armor is to make things impenetrable, is to make things formidable. And the more we pile the facts on, the more we talk about the problem, the more we get caught up in the situation and the circumstance, the stronger it appears to us, the more that it seems for us. That person that's in an unhappy relationship says, I've got to be unhappy. Don't you understand? I've got to be because the other person in my life is acting this way. Why can't you understand? That person who's sick says, I can't do this and I can't do that because I'm sick. Don't you see? Just piling on more armor for Goliath, making it seem larger, making it seem more massive. What is your Goliath? Goliath would seem large standing in front of us. But if Goliath is standing in front of a mountain, not so large, because the mountain is even more massive. And we should be afraid because Goliath's weapon is fear. But here in this moment, there's something that we can do. There's something that's available to us in this moment and in each and every moment. How you think about yourself, your consciousness is important. If you come at situations other than from your divine identity, you will produce the experience in line with the consciousness that you approach, from the perspective from which you approach it. Because thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So if you come at situations other than from your divine identity, then you will have more of them. You will bring more of them into your lives. The universe always says yes. And a lot of people think about the universe saying yes, and I'll get this and I'll get that. But really what we talk about when we say that the universe always says yes is that how you think about yourself is acknowledged by the universal principle, which is God. It continues to give that to you. So if you're worried, then and come in that perspective, you continue to worry. If you are unhappy, you continue to find reasons and feeling worried pile up. If you find yourself feeling in one way or another, it continues to pile up because of getting caught up in that, because thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. Remember your divine identity. And when you do so, something begins to happen. When you remember your divine identity, anything other than your divine identity, anything else that you engage in, it disturbs you, it troubles you, it makes you feel uneasy. And the reason why is because it's not in alignment with what your true identity is, with who you truly are. That's what happened to David. He saw the confrontation. He heard the things that were being said, and he was disturbed. David represents remembering our divine identity. God is omnipotent, and our point of contact is our consciousness. The universe always says yes, and how we think of ourselves is acknowledged by this universal principle, which is God. It's the application of truth that makes the difference. I heard one of my teachers say that it's like the difference between a flashlight and a laser, and the difference is intensity. You could take a flashlight and shine it on something and you will illuminate it, but you take a laser and you shine the laser on it and it penetrates, it goes through because it's much more concentrated, it's much more intense. It will go through the situation. Be the laser in your life. Be the laser in these things. And how did you do that? David remembered his divine identity. He remembered his past experiences. And he remembered that in the midst of those past experiences, when he encountered those lions and bears as he was out tending sheep, that he was able to overcome them. He knew that he had the tools and the courage and the fortitude to make it and to overcome those lions and bears, those things that were coming to devour his sheep. David remembered those things. He understood in that moment that all that he had been through in the past was preparing for him for this moment. I think of one of the familiar gospel songs, contemporary gospel songs that was sung for quite a while, and maybe some people are still singing it, but it says this line that God is preparing me for something that I can't handle right now. That as things are happening in our lives, remembering that we are always being prepared. We are always gaining knowledge and gaining strength and gaining power to do the things that it is that we need to do. David remembered those things. And when he came to himself, initially he went to Saul and said to Saul, I will fight him. And that it represents David looking for outside power, outside authority, outside control. Saul the king was amazed and amused, and he put his armor on David, but it didn't fit. Because when we try the outside, when we think that the solution lies on the outside of us, then we find that ultimately those things that we thought were solutions somehow don't fit. They somehow don't suit us. And so we have to understand in this moment that that's when we look to the inside, because the inside is where the power is. It's where the answer is. I'm not saying that there won't be resources and assistance that comes to us in the midst of the situation when we're facing our Goliath. But what I'm saying is that's not the source. The source is God, and all of the other things line up and move from God. And that's where we begin. We begin from universal principle. And what David does is he takes 5 stones, 5 smooth stones. And those smooth stones represent unadorned truth. It represents being able to not focus on the problem, but focus on the solution. It means truth that is not encumbered by anything else. They were smooth stones. And I think the reason why the author takes the time to point out that they were not just any stones, but smooth stones, was to reinforce that. We all know people that when you talk to them and they will come to you about a problem, they want to dwell on the problem. They want to talk about the problem. And even when you seek to give them a solution, even when you seek to help them find a solution, we see that they continue to talk about the problem and could care less ultimately about the solution. We all know them, and many times we are them. But David takes the smooth stone, unadorned truth. And if you think about it again, when we talk about our affirmative prayer that we use, we don't focus on the problem. We use unadorned truth. We take the truth of what it is that we want, get away from what it is that we don't want, and focus on that. And then with that laser-like intensity, we send that prayer out. We focus on what it is that we want. We focus on seeing the solution. We pray from the solution. We understand it from the perspective of the solution. And we know that victory is ours, that victory is assured. That when we understand that we form the mental equivalent, that is when we see it before it already manifests. When we're already in our minds, we see the solution, we see the end, we see the results. The result, that's what the mental equivalent is. It's the clarity of thinking and the conviction of feeling. And both are necessary in order to conquer our Goliath, to conquer your Goliath. And then finally, the thing that David does is he cuts off the head of Goliath. And I know sometimes we can think about this as being violent in such a way and all of that. But there's, again, another symbolic, metaphysical meaning behind all of this. That by cutting off the head, it's signaling that this Goliath, this looming, seemingly large situation and circumstance can't live anymore. It can't reconnect. I remember when I was a little boy and I was down visiting my grandparents and my great aunt in Fitzgerald, Georgia. And I was up at my great aunt's house with my cousin, and we were outside in the yard and we were playing. And I ran around the back of the house, and as I did, there curled up was a snake. It was a big, large snake. And I remember screaming, and my cousin came to see what I was screaming about. And I stood there frozen, terrified by that snake. And my great aunt came out because my cousin had gone and gotten her. And she'd come out with a hoe. And she took the hoe and she started to chop the snake up. And then she took time to take the head of the snake and bury it away from the rest of its body. And my cousin, the way we did one another, continued to tell me, well, when you go to sleep tonight, the snake is going to reconnect and come and find you. And I was frightened at that moment. But my great aunt assured me that the reason why she had made time to cut the head off and separate it is so that it couldn't reconnect, that it couldn't live again. And we think about other instances where the signal that we give to the universe is that when we cut the head off of something, when we cut that part off that would contribute to the problem and think, that's when we understand that it can't live anymore. That's when we understand that no longer has it power over us. That's when we can say to ourselves, now I've really learned that this kind of belief or that kind of fantasy that I had engaged in about how large or looming this power, this problem is, this Goliath has no more power. When we hurl the stones of truth to all of the situations and circumstances that are happening in our lives, we make the difference. We become powerful. We keep the promise to ourselves, as we are talking about this month, to understand and remember our divine identity, to know who it is that we are, to take ourselves to another level because of the power that we truly have, the people that we truly are. And so it Infinite prosperity is mine to share. Thank you so much for your support of us through your conscious giving. We know that times can be uncertain, but you continue to support Open Heart, and it is truly appreciated. You can do so via our app. You can do so online or text the word GIVE to 615-422-4292. Thanks again.
There was a time in my life I thought I had to do it all for myself. I didn't know that the grace of God was sufficient, and I didn't know that the love of God was at hand. But now I can say, if you are discouraged, struggling to make it through another day, you got to let it go, let it all go. And this is what you have to say. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggles, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggles, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggles, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God. God's work is mighty and marvelous. God increases our lives every day. And my soul magnifies the Lord. Yes, God's love redefines my existence. Yes, God's peace resurrects my life. Oh yes, God's joy, well, it's lifting me. It's lifting me. It's lifting me up. God's joy, oh yes, said it's lifting me, lifting me up. See, God's
look for